Marie Yovanovitch was the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine under Donald Trump, and he fired her. If you remember back, she was chirping that he was going to get himself impeached. She was kind of shit-talking him behind his back, and so he fired her. And she recently gave an interview to PBS where she basically laments the diplomacy pursued under Donald Trump. And she basically says, isn't it a shame that under Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin didn't feel a need to invade Ukraine? Let's see how she puts this here.
President Trump has claimed that this invasion, quote, never would have happened in the Trump administration. I've heard that you have also suggested that Putin might not have gone to war if Trump was still in office. And you said, quote, you don't need to go to war if you're getting everything you want through other means. Tell me what you meant by that.
Trump was very dismissive of NATO. I mean, dismissive is obviously a diplomatic word, very critical of NATO, critical of our allies. And his close associates, including John Bolton, have said that if he had won a second term, he would have pulled us out of NATO. I mean, why go to war if you're Vladimir Putin, if the United States is going to present, kind of the corpse of NATO on a silver platter? You don't need to do that.
How do you think the invasion would have been different if Trump had remained as president?
I think that Trump would have provided Putin with enough of what he wanted that, perhaps he wouldn't have invaded.
So
that's just a remarkable quote there. Trump would have provided Putin with enough of what he wanted, so perhaps he wouldn't have invaded. Isn't what she's describing there...
That would be terrible.
Well, exactly. I mean, isn't what she's describing there diplomacy? Isn't that what diplomacy is? Is you make sure that all parties are satisfied so that violence does not break out? Isn't that the whole point of international relations, is to do that? This whole idea that he would have pulled us out of NATO, I don't think is necessarily true. It is true that votes on countries to join NATO have to be unanimous. So if we say, okay, no, Finland is asking to join NATO now. Right. No, we don't want Finland in. That's it. Finland can't come in. And so it's possible that Trump, it's not possible, it's likely, in fact, it's fairly provable that Trump would have contained NATO to what it is now and not expanded it further, in which case, as she says there, Putin probably would not have invaded Ukraine, which would have been better than him invading Ukraine, in my opinion. Certain cities that don't exist anymore would still exist. Children who had to be born in underground bunkers could have been birthed in hospitals, all that stuff would have been much, much, much better had we had a president committed to satisfying all parties in order to avoid war. Just one man's opinion, of course.
Yeah, but then how would we have been able to rally the West and unite together under the brilliant stewardship of Joe Biden, as the press would have it? Putin has made his biggest mistake. He made his biggest error. This is what I've been asking this from the beginning, because there's a pattern with the way the media covers things like this. They're completely wrong. They're always wrong. They're always telling liberals that the people that they hate are on the ropes and they're going to lose, and we got them this time, and the walls are closing in, and and it never fucking works out that way. It never works out like that. Putin shows no signs of being on the ropes. They were saying, oh, Russia is about to default on its debt. They didn't default on their debt. They've been preparing for this for decades. They've been diversifying their cash currencies. And just like I said in my article, now you've got China doing deals with Russia in the yuan rather than in the dollar. You got Saudi Arabia talking to China about doing that. You got Israel. Israel is starting to diversify its currency holdings, and for the first time is adding the yuan. Putin, to read him as a madman, to read him as foolish or stupid, like he didn't know what he was getting into, that is the most foolish thing of all. You regard him as a mortal enemy. You need to understand your enemy. You need to know your enemy. The idea that he's he just went into Ukraine, you're really not paying attention to who he is if you think that. This was not just about Ukraine. This was about upsetting the apple cart of the Western domination of the international order, particularly the economic system that allows America to impose these kinds of sanctions on Russia. And it's working. You have all these countries are looking at this and saying, wow, America is not a reliable enough country to hold this kind of power. And I'm afraid maybe one day they'll do that to me, or they'll do that to my ally. How do we get out from under the thumb of the US? And really, you can't do it without removing the dollar status as the world's reserve currency, which is underway now. I think ultimately that was Putin's prize. Not that he didn't care about Ukraine, but this wasn't about Ukraine. Not really, not even mainly.
Please clap.